In this video, I'm going to show you how to write an equation based on a story for a proportional relationship. So here we have the story, Edwin earns $10 an hour for washing cars. We know that we have to use the variables h and d to represent the hours and the dollars. So to write our equation, we need to figure out the relationship between h and d. There's two equations we could write. The first equation could start with h equals. The second equation starts with d equals. Now, to figure out what the rest of our equation should be, we want to find the constants of proportionality. The reason we want to find these is that every equation for a proportional relationship can be written as y equals kx, where k is a number. It's the constant of proportionality. Okay, so the form of our equation is going to be h equals something times d, and d equals something times h. All right, so to figure out what those values are, I recommend making a table. So in our table, we are going to use the fact that he earns $10 an hour to find what our constants of proportionality are. Well, right away, I already know one of the constants. It's 10. And the reason it's 10 is because in 1 hour, he earned $10. And when a number for one of the variables is 1, the other number is a constant of proportionality. Okay, so I'm going to ignore the rest of these entries for now, and I want to find the other constant of proportionality. So I'm going to make an extra value in the table for making sure that I know what happens when the dollars is 1. So to figure out what that missing number is here, I can use the other values in my table. To get from 10 to 1, I can divide by 10. So I have to do that to the other value also. 1 divided by 10 is 1/10. That's the other constant of proportionality. That's also equal to 0.1. And just remember that your constants of proportionality are always going to be reciprocals. What I mean by that is 10 over 1 is one of the constants. The other one is going to be 1 over 10. You're just flipping the numerator and the denominator. So I have my two constants of proportionality. I know one of them goes here and the other goes here, but I need to make sure I put them in the right spots. So I have to think carefully about what these equations mean. Let's look at the orange equation. In the orange equation, I'm trying to calculate the hours based on how much money I've made. So let's plug in like an example from the table. Let's do the first table entry. 1 hour should equal something times $10. Well, I can tell right away that to get to 1 by multiplying by 10, I'm going to have to multiply by a number that's less than 1. So that must be 1/10. So my equation is h equals 1/10 times d. And if you think about it, that makes sense because 1/10 is the, let's see, how many hours it takes to make $1. And if I multiply that by the number of dollars that I make, I'll end up with how many hours I've worked. Okay? And so it makes sense that the other one must be 10 here. And we can confirm that also. If we do this time, D is 10. 10, is that equal to 10 times 1? Yes, it is. And I just use this table entry. Okay, so here are my two equations. And that should make sense too, because 10 represents, we know that every hour he makes $10. So if you multiply 10 by the number of hours, you'll get the total amount of money that he made. Okay, now we can use our equations to find the missing values. You didn't need to write the equations to find the missing values. You could have found the values first, but I'll show you how the equations work and help us. So first, let's find this missing value. We know the number of hours is 4. We're trying to find how much money he made. Because I know the hours, I'm going to use the equation that multiplies 10 by the hours to get the dollars, which is what we need to know. So I'm going to do dollars equals 10 times, I'm plugging in the number of hours for H. So I know D equals 40. Okay, so I have 40. And I can also use my other equation for this missing value. This time, I know how much money I made, and I need to find how many hours have passed. So I'm going to use the orange equation. H equals 1/10 times 95. If you do that in your calculator, you'll get H equals 9.5. Notice that that's basically dividing by 10. 9.5. One final note, the way that I wrote the equations isn't the only way you can do it. Here are some alternative ways to write the orange equation. H equals D divided by 10. Or you could have done H divided by D equals 1/10. Or 0.1. And alternative ways to write the purple equation, I'll do it down here on the left. I could have done D equals H divided by 1/10. That's a really unnatural way to do it, so you probably wouldn't have come up with that. Or I could have done D over H equals 10. Okay, I'm going to quickly now go through this second example. Why don't you pause the video and try this on your own? You're going to try to write 2 equations for this example and fill in the missing values. Okay, here I go. So first I'm going to set up my 2 equations. I have T and S. I know that one of them is going to be T equals something times S, and the other one is going to be S equals something times T. I need to find the constants of proportionality. So I'm going to add some entries to my table to help me out there. Okay, so I want to know when I make 1 Twinkie, how many seconds will it take? And if I have 1 second, how many Twinkies can I package? Those will be the constants of proportionality. So now we did not start with any known values in the table. So I'm going to add one more column here. And I'm going to put 5 Twinkies in 2 seconds. Let me move this up a little bit. 5 Twinkies in 2 seconds, because that's what they tell me in the story. Now I can use that to find the missing values. Let me color code it. To get from 2 to 1, I can divide by 2, so I have to divide 5 by 2. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So I know that in 1 second, I can package 2.5 Twinkies. And the other one, to get from 5 to 1, I divide by 5. To get from 2, well, I also have to divide by 5 to keep it proportional. 2 divided by 5 is 0.4, or 2/5. Now notice my constants of proportionality are 2/5 and 5/2. Oh, again, they are reciprocals. So now I need to figure out which one to put where in the equation. And I can do that by trying to plug in some values here. So I know that when t equals 5, s should be 2. So I need to multiply something by 2 to get 5. I know that number has to be bigger than 1 because it's increasing in value. So it's got to be the 2.5, or 5/2. And here, this time it's flip-flopped. I already know it's going to have to be the other one, 0.4, but I'll show you once again. This time the seconds is 2. The number of Twinkies is 5. 5 times something has to give me 2. I know that number has to be less than 1, 0.4. Okay, so there's my 2 equations. And here are the 2 constants of proportionality. Now you can use your equation to find the missing table values. If you do that, I'll just quickly go through what you will get. Whoa, did not mean that to happen. Great. We'll just put that in the corner for now. So I'm trying to find this value. It's 4 seconds. I know the seconds, so I'm going to use the purple equation. T, the number of Twinkies, equals 2.5 times the seconds. 4, 2.5 times 4. If you don't know that, you can use your calculator. 10. Okay, now I can use the other equation. This time I know the number of Twinkies, so S equals 0.4 times the number of Twinkies, which is 2 Twinkies. 0.4 times 2 is 0.8, so that goes here. You could use that equation again. S equals 0.4 times 100. Well, that's going to be 40 if you calculate it, and there we go. That's how you can find your equations from a story.